In 1984, Universal and Lorimar presented The Last Starfighter.
Greetings, Starfighter. You have been recruited by the Star League to defend the frontier against Zur and the Kodan Armada. Get ready? Prepare for blastoff.
I played Alex Rogan, a kid from an isolated mountain trailer park who's recruited to fight in an interstellar war when he breaks the record on a seemingly ordinary video game. Hi, I'm Lance Guest. All of us who worked on The Last Starfighter were drawn to its charming story, its witty dialogue, and its tongue-in-cheek treatment of good old-fashioned space adventure fantasy, all of which form the base of its continuing popularity. But if there's one element that earns a distinctive place in cinema history, it's the film's groundbreaking use of computer-generated visual effects. So now, let's cross the galaxy to that war-torn planet of Rylos and hear from director Nick Castle and the rest of the artists that crossed another frontier that led to the amazing new world of digital effects technology. Long before technology enters the scene, there's always the idea, the story, and the writer.
I was a junior copywriter at an advertising agency in New York, and I would find myself with large blocks of time between account meetings or whatever, and I started writing screenplays. It was funny because one day I was on my lunch break and I kind of wandered into one of these video arcades. And I saw this young boy playing with a video game, and I was at the time also reading The Once and Future King by White. And you know, it suddenly occurred to me, in a bolt from the blue or whatever, what if a video game was like a sword in the stone, and the boy pulled the sword from the stone, and some boy scored an incredible number on this video game, and it sent out a ripple effect across the universe.
And Nick came in with about 100 ideas on what to do with the film. And I was really impressed with him, and I don't think I met anybody after I met with Nick, because I kind of, at that point, felt he was the right guy for the movie.
Jonathan had said it in Suburbia, kind of a Steven Spielberg, Poltergeist, even E.T. world, which was, I thought, too derivative of those works. So we looked for a different place and also a more secluded place.
Suburbia seemed kind of too comfortable a background to have the boy want to evolve from. But if you show a boy wanting to kind of leave a trailer park under very modest circumstances, the sympathy level, you know, your heart goes out to kids like that a little more.
It just always made so much sense that you had a kid who felt trapped and really wanted a better life for himself and looked metaphorically to the stars.
And the place we found, I had this store that was already there. It had these levels. A place where Otis, the store manager and kind of the manager of the place, it seems, lives in this little place, and it's some kind of funky stairs that go down to the main spread where all the trailers are there. And so Jim, I know, did a lot of maneuvering of the trailers and brought in a couple of things, and we did a lot of dressing to give it a real sense of Americana.
And the trailer park also provided, I think, the opportunity for Nick to do what he does best, which are create eccentric little characters and a funny little neighborhood.
I'm gonna miss my soup!
Oh, stop.
I think you see a certain amount of the charm and schmaltz of a Hollywood musical in there, without the music.
The primary design element was the sign. It had the Starlight, Starbright trailer park. And while it looks a little bit like a bowling alley sign, it still, I think, had a degree of resonance for the plot.
we realized that we were doing a movie about a kid that gets recruited to go fight an interstellar war, and if you're going to do a movie with that premise, that simple premise, you're going to run right up against Star Wars. And I think the beta unit stuff on Earth really does help the movie give its originality.
Hey, you look like me.
Of course I do. I'm the beta unit.
What the hell's a beta unit?
Alex was more serious, and the beta unit was more goofy.
Now I need an ear job. Dying.
The scene where I took my head off and put it on the table, I had this really funny looking wig on, and they had to make me up because I was so very, very sick for the whole week of reshoots. And some of those scenes I look really dead.
Alex, what the hell's going on?
Louis, you're having a terrible nightmare. Go back to sleep. Louis!
If the technology's there to sort of take them away, then certainly they've got to have the technology to sort of see that they're not missed. It enabled us to leapfrog the stories and intertwine them. Not only were you sort of taken along for the ride with the beta unit down learning the trials and tribulations of being a teenager in an Earth family, but you were also intercutting that with what was going on up in outer space.
Rylos and 20 clicks. Squadrons of deck fighters will precede the mothership.
Squadrons? How many squadrons?
It isn't the number of squadrons that concerns me.
Lance was someone that we liked right away. He was in the running as soon as we saw him and heard his first reading. He had the qualities of a young Jimmy Stewart, Henry Fonda. He is also the archetypal hero, and of course at the beginning all he really wants to do is leave the trailer park and have a life outside of this little world that he grew up in and go to the big city.
You guys think I'm gonna hang out here, watch you shine your pickup, go to the drive-in, get drunk and throw up every Saturday night, go to city college like everybody else? Forget it, man. I'm doing something with my life.
And little does he know is the big city turns out to be the cosmos.
There's only enough room up there for me, Brig, and Maggie.
Me?
Yeah.
Catherine Mary Stewart is in the same way. We're looking for someone to be the girl next door, perky and charming and attractive, and we just loved her spirit and also her sense of this wistfulness that she has and this kind of underlying fear that she could project about being someone that might have to go away from her setting, which was very comfortable for her to live with her granny and help her out.
Alex! Wait, Alex!
A singular honor for everyone was the opportunity to work with the amazing Robert Preston in his last feature film.
Action. What the?
Robert Preston was someone that I think Jonathan Betchwell came up with that idea. And when he said, "What do you think for Centauri of Robert Preston, Music Man in Outer Space?"
Centauri is the name. I invented Starfighter, which is why I'm here.
It is?
It is. We have to talk about a matter of utmost importance. Step into my office. That's it.
And we just, all of us turned and went, we have to get that guy. We have to get Robert Preston. And in fact, when Jonathan came up with the idea, we started to rewrite the character. Because if you think of the Music Man, you think of Robert Preston, he talks, 1,000 words a second.
Centauri is impressed. I've seen him come and I've seen him go, but you're the best, my boy. Dazzling. Light years ahead of the competition, which is why Centauri is here.
You needed someone that was really going to pull off those lines, and it was just a match made in heaven.
Well, there's a lot of con in Centauri. I don't think anyone's ever portrayed an outer space con man yet.
Return the money, Centauri.
Return the money? Are you delirious? Do you know how long it took to invent the games, to merchandise them, get them into the shops by Christmas?
And he was a tremendous guy to work with. Real fun. Great stories about Hollywood. So, it was a fun time to have him on board. He was a real trooper because it was a very difficult exercise in putting on the makeup. All day long, isn't it, Robert?
Mm-hmm. Getting it over with.
I'm gonna walk him out, yeah.
It was my first film, and I was huge Music Man fan and a big fan of his and the character he portrayed, Music Man. And
there's no more cables or anything, Press. You just have to get in the car. Okay.
I see boxes.
I can do this in my sleep.
So working with him and getting him for the movie was a thrill, and he was terrific to work with, and everybody had a great time with him.
And you're down in here like this, and I want to not see you, and then come up firing right at where King is.
I would always try to get him to rehearse the scenes with me.
Shooting camera left.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, the guy was in his mid-70s, and he would always say, "Hey, I'm a theater actor. I'll do it as many times as you want."
Action.
It was amazing. He still had that great energy, and he was tremendous in the film.
Phew. Foul stench. Dirty creatures. Now get a good look, Alex. As you can bet your asteroids you'll be seeing more of them. Either you fight, or you get used to that smell. Look out, Alex!
Centauri! Yeah, Centauri. Are you okay? Beta, get a doctor.
No native cures or witch doctors. I'm fine.
You know, it's a license to steal. It's a wonderful way to make a living. And I wish the world could enjoy its job as much as I enjoy mine. Rita. Rita now.
When Press and I drove off in the Star Car, we had no idea that we were leading the filmmakers on a voyage to an uncharted realm of movie visual effects. Fortunately, our navigators were Gary Demas and John Whitney Jr. and their inspired vision.
We have an audience that is always hungry for something new, fresh, and original looking, and I think computer graphics is going to provide, for many years to come, the best in entertainment.
The use of the computer to create a simulation with a degree of photorealism became our early goal, because if we're going to be projecting an image on a big screen and it's going to suspend disbelief, it can't have jaggies, it can't have low resolution, it's got to look sharp, and it has to be intercuttable. So you have to be able to record a color image on a 35mm film with a pin registered movement in the camera, you know, all this basic stuff, and we set about bringing all those elements together, and Digital Productions was the venue, the scene where that took place.
So we set out to begin to do complex scenes with lots of information in them and large volumes of scenes using the Cray supercomputer, and we got the last Starfighter project launched with Ron Cobb.
And it was very, very clear from the time I first met John Whitney Jr. and joined his company, Digital Productions, that what we were going after was photoreal simulations, the idea of a kind of synthetic photography, which was very, very exciting to me. I definitely saw that potential and was drawn to the company for that reason. And so here was our chance to see if we could actually do it.
It was a breakthrough type of idea, which I thought was very interesting. It was, one, I had no experience with special effects of any kind, so anything, I was going to be a novice walking into any situation. And the idea of doing something that would have kind of historical implications was fun. Talking to Ron Cobb, he, more than anybody else, sold me on the idea that this could be done, that it could look real, photo-real, and as long as Lorimar was willing to give it a shot, and that was really where the money was going to come, and where the bottom line was, you know, that this all could turn out just fine.
I was going a lot by John Whitney Jr.'s enthusiasm about exactly what was possible, and I took his word for it, you know.
And what I did was say, well, now our deadline is, I think at that point it was 6 months away. It had to be in theaters in 6 months, and I said, so how many frames are we doing? And they told me whatever the number was. And I said, how many polygons in each frame? And they told me whatever it was. And I said, and how long does it take to render a frame at that level? And they told me, and I stood up on the chalkboard and did the math. I said, according to your own figures, it's going to take you 17 months to complete this film.
Jeff Oken came into my office one time, we were about halfway through, and said, it can't be done. We're not going to do it. We're not going to make it. We're not going to make it in time, and the special effects are just not going to work.
Not even your mighty Starfighters will be able to save you.
We shall see, Zor. We shall see.
You're not going to finish your film in time. I have 3 model companies standing by. I can get all these sequences shot the way that you boarded them and delivered in 5 months without increasing your budget. All you have to do is fire Digital Productions.
So I basically just said to Jeff, go back. It's going to work. Go back and make it work. And I never want to hear you say that again.
Victory or death!
Victory or death!
Victory or death!
Victory or death! Victory or death! Victory or death!
The process, like any pioneering effort, is going to have its ups and downs. And here we were pioneering, like I said, right in the middle of doing a movie with no, really no history to fall back on as to how long this would all take.
So we agreed we would simplify the shots, which is a real shame.
It was very exciting to be in a situation like that, to have film backers trust us enough to develop the software, train the staff, build the models, and get things going all on parallel tracks. What we had to do at DP with regards to Ron Cobb's designs, we had to take his designs and draft them.
Ron had some extraordinary talents that were very important. One matter had to do with the creation of the design of the Gunstar ship. And in order to make a 3D database of that design, Ron had to draw. And he was able to do this freehand, front and side and top and bottom views of the ship, as if he was actually making mechanical engineering drawings for its actual manufacture as a real thing. And he was able to do that. And that made our job just so much easier because we were able to take those drawings and input them into the computer.
I got launched into digitizing drawings, storyboarding, showing the CGI animators, you know, how the spaceships were supposed to fly. Knowing something about aircraft motions pretty well translates into spacecraft motions. The Gunstar was a remarkable machine. Ron had figured out every little nut and bolt on it. I was very happy to see a working spacecraft with like real thrusters and obeying real spacecraft motions.
It was designed for that, to be an actual spacecraft. So all the attitude jets are completely there, and I wrote big manuals on how we could automate this. And once we got all that down and we were able to instruct the computer to create these sequences of frames, there was not enough power left to let us see it until we laboriously put it on film. That was a huge blind spot, you know, and only then could you say, oh, I got that number wrong, or it was in the wrong position, and then you go back, change the number, and you have to go through the whole process again. We went from that to where we had instant playback, at least in a vector form, a kind of wireframe form. We could keyframe or position things and have the computer animate for us, and then we could alter the animation. And we ultimately had tremendous little handles on all the rotations and translation coordinates of any object, as well as the object itself. So at the end, we were able to just, as I say, almost use it like a word processor. We could just make scenes and see them instantly and correct them, see them instantly, correct them again, see them instantly, correct them again, see them instantly, one more correction, see them instantly, and got it. But you have to have that loop. If that loop is days, you know, that's a machine very much in the way.
I remember sleeping on the bench of the Cray, and I wasn't the only one. There were a lot of late hours, a lot of long hours, people just cranking away trying to make sure everything came out and not let a single bad popping polygon get into the show. And so we lived there on the facilities. And you have the Cray self-portrait that we rendered, and it is in the shape of a C, and it has a nice round bench around it, and that was a comfy place to get an hour of sleep before you had to go back in and fix the next bug. You could also stand in the middle of the Cray, and that was kind of eerie. It was like, will I have children? Will they be normal?
It was really difficult because, again, we were waiting for something we didn't know was going to come out. You know, we didn't know if it was going to come out and if it would come out on time even. There was a lot of worry. The studio was worried, we were worried, they were worried, everyone tried to keep, I know the digital, you know, had to spoon feed us the information in order not to freak us out because of a lot of the problems they were having.
It was a very exciting place to be, because you would walk in and like once a week, you'd hear a little shout of triumph from one of the little cubicles and a head would pop up and then it would prairie dog all over the place, meaning all the heads in each cubicle would pop up and there'd be a mass rush to this one cubicle and somebody would go, you know, Eureka, I've discovered, somebody discovered how to place multiple lighting sources in something, and it's like everybody would go nuts for like 2 hours.
Now we can do this. Yeah, I come in the morning and says, we can now do this. You know, we can now, each time there's a little more. And I'd have to convey that to Lorimar and Nick and everything. They can do this now, at least they say they can.
They did particles before there were particle system things, you know. It was just amazing.
And we no longer had to just claim we could do it, we now could show that we could do it, you know.
So we were writing software as we were doing production, and it was pretty exciting and wild time.
Well, the scariest part of all of that was that Ron had worked out exactly how he wanted the starships to look, and my challenge was to take all of the architectural motifs that he'd established and integrate it into what was eventually going to be rendered digitally. And there were a couple of real challenging problems. One of them was that all the rendering software hadn't been developed yet. So how this stuff was actually going to look, we didn't know. And all in all, we decided to play the thing relatively conservatively and go with simpler designs that we knew that the computer would probably be able to match.
On one side you saw where all the starfighters gathered, where all the technicians were, where the leader would talk to the warriors, and look this way and you would see the gun stars all locked in their hangars and being shifted around, and the night sky in the distance and the pallet that would take them out to be launched. Yeah, this the biggest stage at MGM at the time.
The method for integrating all of this was to have a couple of real set pieces, the actual landing gear of the ships that you were going to eventually turn the camera around and see. When we're shooting towards the screen and towards the starfighters, we had the actual landing gear we could shoot through, and that was one of the integrative live action components.
Rodney, Rex Simon, Action! Okay, everyone peek around, get a head in. There you go.
Jeff Oken, he was instrumental in knowing where we would need interactive materials like smoke to really pay off the combination of doing things both live action and digital. When the Gunstar lands in the park at the end is a composite shot that didn't have smoke. And I remember Jeff adding smoke, which really gave a sense of the connection between the two mediums.
When the last Starfighter was completed, everyone agreed that the tremendous musical score composed by Craig Safin was a key element in holding everyone's work together.
I mean, I love the story of the kid, and I love him getting his dream and leaving and going to outer space. And it's, you know, as corny as it is, taking the girl to outer space with him. I felt that if I could find a theme that, when played slow, would be the love theme, like, you know, dun, da, 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 dun, dun, or if it's played bum, 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 bum. No matter how you would play it, you could be exciting, in love. You just express the sort of soul of the picture.
Craig Safin's themes really did make the film come alive. He created both the intimate moments of it very well, and then taking it up to the grandeur of space. He combined the two so well.
None of the computer animation was done, so I would see a dot, like a white dot, and then maybe a white square, and Nick would be standing over my shoulder.
He was given ideas of what was happening, and blank cards went in those places for him to score. But actually, I got to talk him through what was happening and what I thought it would look like.
Here's the mothership, and this is the Kodan Warrior, and here they meet, and there's a huge explosion. And I mean, none of this was on the screen except these little teeny dots. And so I had to sort of imagine the power of it and the big ships and all that to be able to write a huge orchestra and all the power of a 100-piece orchestra, you know, to support this action.
Within a decade of Starfighter's release, computer effects technology had advanced far beyond everyone's expectations. Even the artists at Industrial Light and Magic, responsible for the effects in the Star Wars films and Jurassic Park, were astounded at how rapidly the technology had evolved.
John Whitney and I decided to pursue the full potential of computer graphics, not just to get a big feature project, scale back, let's take it easy. We wanted to really explore what was possible. And we had done an X-Wing fighter ship test for George Lucas in '78.
I wanted to prove that it was possible to use a computer system to create more exciting story points and more dynamics on the screen.
I think the test had been around for a while, and I can't remember who I saw it with. But I remember walking into the screening room when this test was being shown, and I just said, my God, there's no way that I could have programmed this shot. There's no way I could have gotten these maneuvers. There's no way I could have visualized this in advance to be able to see these ships flying along. And one of them, I remember, sort of does a big loop-de-loop and flies up out of camera range, comes back and flies right by the camera. I couldn't have even figured out how to pre-visualize that in order to be able to try it even in motion control. It was really neat. And I remember the number of the folks there that were looking at this were not impressed at all. It was like, oh, well, okay, that's it. And they sort of turned it off. But boy, you could see there was a future, and it just needed time and money, to take care of it. So development, a lot of people in there building hardware and software to be able to get it to a point where it was going to pay off, and it sure has.
I think Last Starfighter is a landmark in that it's the first film that attempted to go completely computer generated with all the visual effects. It was a gutsy move. I applaud the effort. I thought there was a lot of great design work there.
We brought a Cray XMP to its knees producing these environments.
Alex, fire!
I believe that if it hadn't worked, somebody else would have had the courage to do it, but the fact that we did it obviously started it off. All the special effects had started researching how to do it on computers, and that's how it got to where it is today.
There were earlier films that used computer graphics, but computer graphics was always used to portray computer graphics. As of The Last Starfighter, it was the first film that actually used computer graphics to portray what used to be portrayed with models and miniatures. The Last Starfighter really was the first film to do that.
There was stuff that was done in that show that should have knocked people's socks off, and there should have been a flock of people into digital productions to say, well, let's talk about how you did this stuff. Or at least other companies going, well, they did this, so we got to be able to do this.
No one took the gamble, though. No one really took the gamble. That's what this movie really is about. Who took the gamble? And it was Gary Adelson, Lorimar, and Digital Productions. They went out on a limb and said, we're going to do it, and we're going to get a Cray computer, and we're going to make a spaceship fly through the sky, and you're going to believe it.
Having done these pictures now, both with animatronics and with computer-generated imagery for 15 or 16 years, I know all the tricks to try to make it seem effortless and seamless. And back then, I wasn't completely sure. And I don't think anybody else was either.
With the other kinds of directors, writers, / producer people, none of this could have happened. And Nick Castle and Jonathan Betchwell, while they bemoaned their fate on a regular basis, they were so supportive. For whatever success that the visual effects achieved in it, it all goes to Nick Castle on one level, because he enabled everybody and he fought the battles on behalf of myself and on Digital Productions against all odds more frequently than not.
The gift that Nick brought to it was that the effects basically enhanced the story. And it's just a simple story. If it wasn't for them going to outer space, you could take it anywhere. I mean, going to the desert, going to the jungle and having an adventure. So in that sense, it's a timeless story.
I love you, Alex Rogan.
Over the last few years, with regard to the movie, people will come up to me and say, oh, you did that, you wrote that, and what a sweet, sweet movie. And it seems to be a timeless theme of reaching out for the stars and coming to grips with the fact that everything that's really important was right at your doorstep.
The Last Starfighter was a one-of-a-kind experience for all of us who were part of it. Those behind the camera, those in front of the camera, and those in front of a computer screen. In the end, its unique achievement teaches us the same lesson as Alex Rogan's story. Never stop reaching for the stars.